Thanks, Sloane, for joining me today. To start us off, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Karen. So my name's Sloane Tilley. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DIA. We're a HAX portfolio company, and we make sensors that are able to monitor chemicals and liquids in real time.
Cool, very succinct. You guys joined HAX in 2022, is that correct? And you guys were at the New Jersey location?
Yeah, so we actually officially signed our paperwork in January of 2023. But yes, ever since then, we've moved the whole team up to Newark and been working out of there. They've got a pretty large prototyping facility right there in downtown Newark.
Nice. And why did you apply to HAX? What stood out about that program?
Yeah, so we've been trying to get the company off the ground in earnest for about 18 months. And especially in that time, it was not easy to be raising money, and it especially wasn't easy to be raising money for a hardware company. Mm-hmm. So the distinguishing feature about HAX is that it's specifically for hard tech. And we did sort of a due diligence period with them for between 4 to 6 months. So it was a long time of building a relationship, but we really felt like it was the place that could actually help us build the technology that we were trying to invent.
Cool. And were you considering other accelerator programs, or was HAX really the one you were looking for?
We had considered a few others, and to be totally transparent, we had been rejected from a few others, as I think most startups are. But HAX we really felt was the best fit. And whenever sort of rubber met road, we had decided that that was the one that we really wanted to pursue with sort of all of our ammunition.
Yeah, appreciate the transparency. And were the other accelerators more like general accelerators, so like they take all types of companies, or was there other hardware specific or hard tech specific accelerators out there that you're looking at?
There was one other hard tech specific accelerator that we had been looking at, but the rest were pretty general. And we haven't just done HAX. We've done a few others. We were part of Berkeley Skydeck, their unfunded portion. We've done Lighthouse Labs. So we've done a few other of those more general accelerators, and they're still very helpful. Yeah. It is, the specific thing about HAX that is so useful is that it's a longer term program, just because once again, they recognize that it takes a little bit longer to build a hardware product. So having some of that awareness and having fellow hardware founders around you has been really helpful.
Cool. And can you give an overview of HAX admission process? I think you mentioned it was like 4 to 6 month due diligence process. Was that like on your end, or was like that them vetting you for that long of time?
That was them vetting us for that long. So they have a pretty impressive team, and because they do really view this more as they act less like an accelerator than they do a venture capital firm. Yeah. So they really expect to remain on your cap table throughout the growth of the company. And they put a lot of resources into each company that they invest in. I think it's a little bit more of a rigorous process to vet the technology and vet the team. But we were put in contact with, HAX is just one of the SOSV accelerators. There's also IndieBio, which is based in New York City and is more life science focused. And then there's a climate tech one in San Francisco. So those are all under SOSV investment firms.
Yep.
HAX is the hardware one. We got put in contact with actually somebody at the climate tech one, who then referred us to HAX. And from there, we just sort of kept on having conversations with people and, several pitches, but it was also a pretty informal process. Yeah.
Can you maybe talk about some of the questions that they were asking, or like what were they focused on for your company?
Yeah, so they have a very robust both engineering and scientific team. And so they really vet the science and the hardware behind your innovation. So what that looked like for us was really explaining some about the patents that we'd filed so far and why that was defensible technology and where we planned to go with our patent strategy, and also discussing how we specifically thought that the HAX engineering team could help us in advancing the technology more quickly.
Cool. And you mentioned HAX is like a long-term program, and you signed your paperwork, I think, in January of this year. So does that mean you're still in the program right now, or have you graduated and moved on?
No, we're still in the program, and we're still based out of the HAX offices. And yeah, we fully anticipate for it to be a long-term relationship, which is something pretty special, I think, about how SOSV invests in companies.
Yeah. And can you talk about, I guess, just like how you're using the program right now, like who you're working with, what resources you're taking advantage of?
Yeah, so Leo Chen is the program manager at HAX. So he manages quite a few teams, but we meet with him on either a weekly or a bi-weekly basis, just especially, so we originally were 3 co-founders. We've since added a 4th employee, and we're hiring for 2 more right now. So, but that's all on the R&D side. So Leo really helps me from a little bit more of the business side and project management. And then they're also helping us specifically build one of the circuit boards for our device right now. So my engineer works very closely with actually a HAX employed engineer. And then we also have sort of regular cadence check-ins with Duncan, who's the managing director of HAX, and cultivates relationships with different investment firms, and also helps us sort of shape the overall strategy and vision, and helps us think about, for our next round of funding, how do we refine our pitch? How do we refine our strategy of what investment firms would really be most advantageous for us to go after?
Cool. Yeah, that's one of the things that I noticed when I was looking at HAX is they really have like their own team and they work alongside you. You mentioned like the engineer helping your team member. I guess, like, how do they allocate their resources? Like, do they assign, like, you get one engineer, or it's like you tell them what your needs are and then they try to accommodate your needs, or how does that actually work?
Yeah, I mean, they really, they make the entire team available to you. So they have people in Newark. They also have engineers over in India. They have supply chain individuals that can help you source different parts as needed as well. The other really key resource is that, in that office in Newark, they have their own 3D printers, their lathes, a soldering and PCB prototyping facility. And then they're actually also building out a wet lab that will hopefully have, high performance liquid chromatography, fume hoods. And that effort is really being led by Dr. Susan Schofer. So they actually have a chief scientific officer. So she holds a PhD, has done lab science for a very long time. And so they really make sure that their teams are well supported from both a scientific and engineering perspective. As far as how they allocate the resources, I have, you have to speak up and let them effectively communicate your needs, but they've always made time for the teams that they support.
Cool. And then kind of curious about, like, you mentioned this is a long-term relationship. I guess, like, what is the endpoint? Is it like if you raise money, then you're moving on and you're moving out of the lab, or I guess, like, what does the endpoint look like?
So there are HAX companies that joined in 2018 that are still in the Newark office. So they won't lead your next round, but they will follow on in your next round. And I think that the informal agreement is, once you get too big for the space, then you need to move out.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And then, kind of curious about, like, the fundraising. So you mentioned they will follow on your next round. Do they still do, like, demo days, or can you talk more about, like, I guess, like, how they support companies with fundraising?
Yeah, so they haven't done demo days in Newark so far. I think there are plans in the works. The Newark location is still pretty new. They're still building it out. Because originally teams did go over to their Shenzhen location in China. But since they're sort of bringing everything back to Newark, I think there are plans to do a demo day and start really building up the Newark ecosystem in that space a little bit more. But that would be a better question for the program manager.
Cool. And then I saw they invest $250K into companies, and $150K of that is cash, and then $100K is like to cover like their team, their office space, all the equipment that they're providing to you guys. What are the terms, I guess, of the $150K that they invest into you? They have standardized terms?
They're negotiated on a company by company basis because companies enter the program at different stages. But they typically do it via a SAFE. It typically does have a valuation cap. So pretty standard as far as, you know, what Y Combinator or Berkeley Skydeck would also do for a very early seed investment.
Cool. And then you mentioned they have a couple of these other programs, so IndieBio, and then I think it's Orbit Startups is maybe the climate tech one. Is there like any overlap between the programs regarding like resources or ways you just like collaborate with like founders in those cohorts, or they're pretty separate?
So particularly between HAX and IndieBio, because we're a 20-minute train ride away, there's a fair amount of collaboration, especially IndieBio tends to host a fair number of sort of investor events in their space. And so the HAX founders are always invited over for their demo days, brought in. And I mean, even the managing director of IndieBio has, because we do have some life science applications, has been willing to sit down with me and take a call. So it is pretty collaborative in terms of meeting people and and I guess more so in terms of people and interactions and introductions. We don't usually work in each other's spaces just because both programs are growing, and IndieBio operates on a cohort schedule. So they have a tighter timeline than HAX does. They're really in and out within 6 months. They really sort of need to have their dedicated spaces for all of their teams, is my understanding of it.
Nice. And I think one of the like value props of like all these accelerators is like for early stage founders is advice. Kind of curious, like what's maybe been like the most valuable piece of advice that you've received during the program, either from the program manager that you're working with or some other people that you've met through the program?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's been a lot of valuable advice. I feel like we've grown a lot in our time at HAX. I would say for me, like personally, is just the confidence that the HAX team put in me and my team as executives to say like, no, you've done the hard work on vetting the technology. Now you sort of need to believe in your leadership skills and grow into those roles, and giving us a bit more specific training around that and saying it's worth putting time into that. It's not just all about the tech. Yeah.
No, I really like that. I think there's a lot of validation to like get into one of these programs. And so it's like a vote of confidence and kind of helps you grow into that next stage. So love that. And then last two questions are more advice related to people considering HAX. I guess like what advice would you give to someone applying to HAX to kind of stand out?
I would say as much as you can, really, they're very open to having conversations. So even reaching, just really making your technology stand out and making it clear why you specifically need hard tech support, because that is such a unique area right now that not a ton of companies are being founded in that area, because it is hard. Like the number of times we have gotten told that like hard tech is hard is, we wouldn't have to fundraise anymore. So I think really emphasize that to the HAX team of why you feel passionate about going into hard tech, because they all obviously feel very passionately about that. And so that's really what makes it a good match.
Cool. And then second part of the question is just like, what advice would you give to a founder who's like accepted to HAX just to make the most of the program?
I would say definitely, if you can, try to come to the Newark facility, because it really is impressive and they're only adding more resources to it. And also just leaning on the fellow founders. I think they've had a lot of very, very impressive founders come through the program. And so really leveraging that network of individuals that have just built incredibly successful companies, and knowing that you're sort of in the HAX portfolio will oftentimes be enough to get you a conversation.
Yeah, cool. And I know they mentioned the New York office is sort of like their main office. Do you have a general sense of like how many startups are working out of there right now?
Do you think Newark or New York?
Newark, sorry.
Sorry, no, I can never tell the difference, and
Yeah.
people can't whenever I say it either. So, right, it's growing. So, I think that they've accelerated their pace of like teams that they're able to support because they have been building out the space. So right now, on any given day, there's between 10 to 12, but I think there are more actively coming in.
Cool. And then is there anything I didn't ask about that you think is important to know for someone considering this program?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, I probably see it through rosy-colored glasses because they believed in my company whenever nobody else did. But I will say, like, they've been really great partners.
Cool. Well, thanks, Sloane, for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kieran.